Okay, I'm basically just talking about the process, the PMP process, where we are at this point. And so basically what it is that all of the supervisors have written their drafts because the self-assessment should be complete. And the one-up reviewers have made their comments and suggestions, and the supervisors should have already put in a preliminary rating. So once the supervisor accepts the suggestions and comments or not, we get to the point where everything will kind of stop at this point. Preliminary ratings are kind of in the system, and we're going to be looking at the tracking sheets because the divisions all have guidance on how many exceptionals, how many outstanding, how many of each, and we should have basically like almost like a bell curve type of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see with the tracking sheets. Right now, I don't have it set up. The tracking sheets aren't set up for I call them pivot reports because it's like a pivot table with a report. Okay, so I just go into Google Drive, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with. You come up into this area here, go into Drive, and then you're in your Google Drive. And I have a tendency of getting lost in here a lot, so I use a search. I either use a search, or you can see a lot of little stars that are on certain things that I've been working on. So in the search, I'm just going to put in, let's see, tracking spreadsheet. Obviously, I've done this before. And what we want is the 2021 division tracking spreadsheet. This is the folder that's holding all the tracking spreadsheets. So there's a couple of these that I went ahead and I updated because I had some divisions that were requesting it. They wanted to take a look at what their ratings distribution looked like. And with the tracking spreadsheets, that's what we're going to be putting together, is the pivot table that's going to show the ratings distribution. So here I'm going to shut off the filter because I want to make sure that I know exactly how many rows I have. And this is on the first tab that says employees. So we'll be here, and I am going to go ahead to the very bottom. And my last row is row 74. So you might want to write that down. So I'll remember that when I go to the next tab. Excuse me. So now I'm going to go to the PMP pivot. And in here, everything was left from last year. I had talked to Luis, so this is something that you want to bring up again with Luis before you guys do the whole launch, because this is a template that he works off of, is to update the FY, so that way next year we'll have FY22 and the template should show up with them already. But we didn't do that this year, so I'm actually updating them. And then here, what I've done too is I've just gotten rid of another place to update. So I'm just doing it like this. Because at the top it says FY21, so obviously that's what this year is. So here we don't need another spot to have to update. So I'm just making it proposed rating distributions are for non-represented employee populations. So these same guidelines, they don't apply to represented, because represented, basically it would be something that's part of their contract. And in some cases, we have represented unions that their increases are not necessarily based on merit. It's based on what has been negotiated. So this is really for your non-represented groups. And here, these were some old, again, this was an old pivot, an old template that we just no longer use those two tabs. So back in here.
Sorry, real quick question.
Sure,
so you said this one is for non-represented groups. Now, are non-represented groups the ones that are based on merit or not?
Yes.
They are.
They are based on merit. All non-represented employees are based on merit.
And then one more question. So you mentioned that sort of in a perfect world, I would reach out to Luis ahead of time because these are the templates he works off of.
Yes.
So,
it's actually one template that he works off of that has none of this is populated. All it has is the headers on the top.
Oh, so before like the process even launched. So before the process launches, this spreadsheet sort of lives like as a skeleton or a template. Yes. And then after it launches, then it starts to populate. So I can reach out to him ahead of time and have him just like make those date updates.
Make those updates. And and if you just mention to him, Pat had said there is some updates, And it was really just a FY again, because what I'm trying to do, and then over here, you mean, I would just remove it, but if it's there and he makes it there too, no, it's no big deal.
Okay.
This is something that I had put together because we had a different process in the past that was really tedious, time consuming, and involved Excel spreadsheets and charts. And I mean, it was like, you know, really it was an overkill. And we had a different lab director at the time though, but that was what he preferred. So with Mike Witherall, he's, you know, I showed him this new one and Margaret, and they were fine with it. So it's like, great, this is something that we can actually do with a pivot table.
Yeah.
So if you notice when I put my cursor in here, you see the pivot table editor off to the side. If I take it out, it goes away. So that's what you want to do. And what these are is two separate pivot tables. Up here is the area that we're telling the pivot table to look at. So we're saying go from A1, and actually the number I mentioned before, the number of rows was 74. I'm going to enter that in there and then just press enter. So now it should be picking up all the way to row 74. Everything else should pretty much be set up except for down here. I don't know why it just loses things. The union codes that we always want to do is 99 and FX. 99 is most of your operational folks, and FX is all of your scientific folks. CX is a union, PX is a union, RX is a union. So we don't want to look at those. Want to say okay. And then another filter, for some reason, again, why these things change on me, I just haven't had time to really delve deeply into pivot tables of Google Sheets, which are different from Excel. So anyway, the next thing I do is I add another level, and I want to add the review status. So in review status, we don't want to see the ineligible. So review status, there's basically three statuses that they can be: ineligible, initialized, or complete. So we always want to look at initialized and complete and remove ineligible, and then we press OK. I'm not sure where this came from here. Looks like I have some kind of conditional formatting. Anyway, that's okay. Oh, you know what? Here I can see something's not right with the tracking spreadsheet. These are the divisions right here. Right now, I'm looking at division AA. For some reason, we've also picked up somebody from engineering in here. Should not be in here. So we're going to be looking at, see right here. So what more than likely happened is that somebody was moved into the AA area, and they didn't change their level here. So I would go back to the who's in charge of AA, which is, this would be for Latanja, the physical sciences office. I think it was probably just a mistake, but I would also let her know. We can change that for now. I'll go ahead and make the change. Okay, there we go. So now it's looking normal. Let me get out of conditional. Okay, so we're back to here now. And that's another way that you can actually check things too, because that told me right there when I saw two divisions showing up, the division that this is really looking at is division AA. I should not have an engineering EG in there. So once the numbers.
Sorry, real quick.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned that you were just assuming that it was a mistake. So that's a mistake that happens in the beginning during, what is it, the checklist? Is that?
It's, no, the checklist, this is the checklist over here. And what they're doing is they're just putting in the parameters that have to do with the app. What it is that at the very beginning, they have to check the tracking sheets. Once we kind of deploy the tracking sheets, what will happen is Luis will get this big giant upload file. And again, this is a template that he has a program that it uploads into this template, and it breaks it out into all the divisions. It's during that time, all of the, that's when you'll go in there and you'll give all of the divisions, you'll use a checklist, and you'll see who do I give access to. And we only give access to the senior partners. It's up to them if they want the division partners in there. Well, actually the senior partners and division partners, usually the two. It's up to them to grant access to whoever they want from there. If they want their division process owners to have access, then it's up to them to grant it. So it's during that time that they'll find, oh, so-and-so transferred, this person shouldn't really be on my sheet. It should be on, this other sheet. So they'll reach out to the other division and let them know that, hey, this person's showing up on my sheet. I'm gonna remove them, so add them to your sheet where they belong. So this can happen back and forth all in the very beginning of the process. And sometimes even later on, they'll realize, oh, we didn't move this other person. They really belong in this other division.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So yeah, so that's what's going on there. So no, it can be confusing too. So now I know I have all of the AAs. The proposed number of folks that we have total is 52. I haven't pulled this over yet. So all I want to do is pull that over. I'm not going to use that anyway, but. So I usually just hide this because it's just not aesthetically pleasing. And then I just make sure that all of these. So it's just a little bit of formatting after. So your grand total that you should have that are actually eligible are 52. We know that we still have 21 that haven't been rated yet. There's no rating for them. That's why they're just sitting here with nothing. There's no label up here under proposed rating. They have 6 under outstanding. They have 20 under excellent, 5 under solid, and that's where their grand total adds everything up. So now we're going to look at the percent totals and do the exact same thing. Bring this up to 74. Yes. 99 FX. We're going to add review status. Remove ineligible. So this all starts to change here too. And this, you can just hide this. And again, it's really just some formatting that I do here. And I usually decrease this down to single digits like this. And here, right here, the distribution guidelines, these are the guidelines. So if it's an outstanding, it should be up to 13%. For excellent, it can be between 35 to 50%. Solid performance, which is SP, it could be 30 to 60%. And then NI and unacceptable, those are the percentages there. So these are the basically, it says ratings highlighted in yellow are not within distribution guideline range. So what I usually do is I'll come back here when I'm doing the final, we'll have that lockdown, remember I mentioned, I'll run all these, I'll make sure these are pristine. If I see anything out of range, I'll just go ahead and highlight that. And then what I do is I actually produce these into a PDF file and make like a big packet that gets sent to the lab directorate. So that's pretty much it. Then, so that's the thing with the pivot. So this pivot now is ready. Again, I'll have to come periodically to check it because in case people made some changes to status, I just want to make sure that, every so often I just kind of poke around, make sure everything is going okay. But again, during the lockdown, that's when it's really crucial. And I will, like I said, really go through these with a fine tooth comb. We know 40% of this group has not completed ratings yet. So that's where we're standing right now.
So this is something that you kind of work on, like, as it starts to happen to keep everything sort of in order, find those discrepancies. But then when lockdown happens, you go through everything again, more detail.
Oh yeah. Yes. And right now, because I'm in it right now, when you're in it, I do kind of a, quick check around to make sure nothing looks weird or, like this one, I could see that it showed up in my pivot table that I had a different division in there. So just went ahead and fixed that. And like I said, I'll go reach out to Latanja and let her know. And more than likely is they made a change and they just forgot to make that change with the division. So the next thing we want to look at after we look at get the pivot up and running is we want to take a look at LOAs. So they might be in here. So these are terms. I'm just going to take a look at the comments. This was a reclass. They termed. I just make sure that they're marked accordingly. I don't know why these are still showing as active, but is it not applicable? Oh, as of July 23rd, that's why, because it's only the 20th today, so they know that they haven't changed it over yet. So, okay, that's fine. It doesn't look like they have any LOAs. So that's what I do basically with each one. So that one's ready to go. Go to the next one. And these right now, unfortunately, we need to get these done like as soon as we can, because they're really starting to look at the ratings. And what'll happen again, when they're looking at the percentages, they're looking at this. And during that time, that's why it's called a preliminary rating still, because during that time, they might still be changing them. So there's going to be two, or proposed ratings, we call it proposed or preliminary. So we're going to have two sets of ratings in this group here, when they can still, they have the ability to change them. They're kind of looking at the overall distribution. They're doing calibrations of how they want to distribute the ratings. And then, eventually it will go into column B, which is the final rating. So we'll go ahead and do one more. Here. Oh, I didn't check what my last row was. 17. Now you see this one only has 99, this group here. There's no FX in this one. Okay, so it's a really small group. Oops. Status. Okay. So do you have any questions or?
I think that this process that you're doing right now makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay, good.
And I kind of wrote down all the steps. I think the part that I'm a little bit confused about, well, I guess two areas are like, one, like when and how often you do this, and then two, like outside of lockdown, and then two, because you did something on the employees sheet when you were looking for LOAs, but then you were looking at comments. And so I think just like generally, I'm not sure what you're looking for.
Yeah, if somebody was on LOA, they would write it down here.
Right.
They would comment LOA.
Mm-hmm.
In these cases, these groups, they're pretty like, oh, actually, here's one reason, LOA. I looked in the wrong spot. So we could go back, let's go back to the AA one, maybe. Make sure.
Under reason.
But we didn't have any in here.
Okay.
So blanks or reclass or terms, so that was okay.
So on this page though, when you're looking at comments, are you just looking to make sure that there's nothing that requires action, like it's just, it makes sense type of thing, or?
Not so, like what I'm really looking for right now is LOAs, or if they have something written in there, just make sure that the whole thing kind of makes sense. This was on an unpaid leave of absence. In this case right now, I'm really just looking at looking for LOAs. I'm looking for, to get our pivot updated. And then I'm checking on LOAs and also making sure that this person, for instance, they say they're on an LOA. I don't know how they gave them a rating, but they already did. Carol Pott. I'm going to look here. They did fill out the tracking form. It was initialized. So I think they've already must have written the review. So I would probably have to reach out to, let's see, who is AC? Everybody's moved around so much. I don't even know. Bill Cannon, to find out if they can fill out this here, because since they seem to have already put a rating in for this person. It's initialized.
So basically, if there is an LOA under the employees tab, it should be being tracked under LOA tracking.
Yes.
And they need to fill out the ratings and they need to sign off, I think, or something is what I saw.
They don't necessarily have to fill out a rating, because in some cases they maybe haven't written a review for them. But the review has to be handled by the time when they come back.
Right. Okay.
So in this case, I'm more kind of like, obviously then they must have written the review before they left and gave a rating before the person went on. I'm making that assumption right now, because this could be without a rating in here. But if they did it, because maybe they're expecting the person to come back before 10/1, in order to get your merit, you do have to have a rating. So that could be the reasoning behind why they put a rating in there too. So those are the main things, like I said, that I look for. And what I do is between now and lockdown, because what I'm doing is I'm usually just kind of, I'm checking the tracking sheets. I kind of really want to focus on the ones that it's like, I don't have ratings. There's a high percentage that don't have ratings yet. And I want to start, getting people to move on the process. So that's basically, but at this point right now, it's really just getting the pivot table set up.
Okay. So you basically go through this one time before doing it during lockdown to make sure that the pivot tables are there, focusing specifically on people that have low participation or like low ratings. Okay.
It just looks like there's nothing's happening there. What's going on? I start reaching out to them, but I'll poke around periodically, all during the time frame between now and the lockdown, and just to get a feel for what everybody's doing. And I believe Luis should start creating. Let me see. Now we have stats. Let's see. Because he creates this for me once a year, and I'll usually have to remind. Okay, that's not what I want. Oops. Anyway, I'll have him create. I can't find it right now. Is it maybe performance review? Yes, this is it. He'll create this for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it gives me at least the stats. And what I'll start doing is I start taking snapshots of this basically, just so that, okay, there it is, so that I can start letting everybody know this is where we stand. And we're never at 100% complete, because we will always have the percent that's ineligible. And we also have some that are eligible, but on LOA. So like we have eligible, but not complete. This last year we had 0. So, and there probably is a couple, and you can see them in there, but the number's so low. And again, I don't go to a decimal point. So that's why it doesn't show up. But I'll talk to him about this. And what it is he creates this for me. This is the pivot table of everybody, complete, ineligible, initialized. It's a different breakdown. And then he's done these different rating pivot tables also. So if we want to look at the whole lab in one shot. The other thing too, these ratings and these pivot tables are confidential. So if you have somebody from one division that says, hey, can I see what the ratings distribution was for ALS, and they're from engineering, we don't do that. We don't share them. So they can only look at basically their own division. And it's they're very, very particular that way. This says all divisions. Basically, all of those tracking sheets, each and every one of these that I just showed you, those individual ones, are all the information of each individual person is in this one tab. With the ratings, proposed rating, with their final rating, the status is complete. And this is a lot of things. Oh, this is another one that he made for duplicates. So I'm not sure what went on there. So this is really Luis's, his file. And he made it so that it can be updated. So all I do is I press this, I think there's this little menu and I press the button and it will update to the minute. And basically what it's doing, it's going out to the tracking sheets right here in this, from this tab, and it's grabbing everything that's currently in the tracking sheet and it pulls it through all these pivots that come through to the summary sheet. So that is where we are.
Cool. So in terms of like how I can support you, do you want me to just start trying to do that with the spreadsheets with the pivot tables and looking for LOIs?
Just go ahead. The sooner the better, like I said, because they've been asking, and if you might open some that you'll go, oh, the pivot's already there.
Yeah.
Those are the divisions. I think it was JGI. And then I thought first, oh, it's just JGI. Yeah, I'll slap it out there quick. And then she's like, and can you do blah, 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 the whole area. So
oh my gosh.
Okay. And you can see it. It's just, it doesn't take long, but it's also good, I think, for you to kind of get your hands in there.
Yeah, no, I think this is perfect.
So,
and I can just keep you updated with sort of the progress.
Just keep me updated. Like if you, hey, Pat, I have to stop because I'm trying to, right now I'm juggling two things. I take care of compensation, which we're doing. The merit is like, we're kind of working on that at the same time, but I'm also working on faculty, which I take care of. And there's all these crazy memos that are going on right now back and forth. So if you could help me with this piece, I would just be so eternally grateful.
I am more than happy to help you.
Okay, Amanda, I really appreciate it. And like I said, just keep me posted. Hey, I left off at, MF or CH, wherever you stopped. And then, hey, I'm picking up from blah, blah, blah. Because if I have the moment too, I'll try to jump in there. And then once we get the whole batch done, I'll send out this big notification telling everybody your rating distribution reports are ready for blah, blah, blah. Because then they start getting all panicky about, do we have too many exceptionals? And, so that's what goes on. I'm going to stop the recording.